Hi everyone, you're listening to The Future of Food Is You, a production of the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. I'm your host, Abena Anim-Somuah, and each week I talk to emerging talents in the food world and they share what they're up to, as well as their dreams and predictions for what's ahead. As for me, I'm the founder of The Eden Place, a community that's all about gathering people intentionally around food. I love this new generation of chefs, bakers, and creatives making their way in the worlds of food, drink, media, and tech. Today's guest is Kate Pauley. Kate is the founder and creative director of Create Dinners, an events company that hosts meaningful food-centric gatherings. Kate has put together more than 70 events in New York, Rhode Island, and California, partnering with a variety of brands. In this episode, Kate and I chat about the power of bringing people together, the ins and outs of running an events business, and much more. As I mentioned, we're part of the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network, which includes another new podcast that some of you might enjoy. It's called She's My Cherry Pie, and it's all about baking. Each Saturday, host Jessie Sheehan talks to the best bakers and pastry chefs around and does a deep dive into their signature baked goods. Listen via your favorite podcast platform, and happy baking! Thank you to Kerrygold for supporting The Future of Food Is You. Kerrygold is the iconic Irish brand famous for its rich butter and cheese made in Ireland with milk from grass-fed cows. Let's talk butter first. There's a Kerrygold butter for all of you out there. From soft and spreadable butter in a tub to sticks of salted or unsalted. A perfect measurement option for foolproof cooking. There's a Kerrygold butter blended with olive oil, which is about to become your pantry essential. My go-to is a traditional block of Kerrygold unsalted butter foils, perfect for baking because of that higher butter fat content and because I can control the amount of salt in the specific recipe. Then there's Kerrygold cheese. The options go way beyond their classic Irish cheddar. There's Kerrygold Blarney cheese, which is a Gouda style, Kerrygold Dubliner, sweet and nutty with a bite similar to aged Parmesan, Kerrygold Skellig, a tangy take on cheddar, and the rich and delicious Kerrygold Cashel Blue farmhouse cheese. For the best cheese board, just accompany these with some grapes, your favorite crackers, and some funky jams for contrasting vibes. You're all set. If you haven't tried Kerrygold yet, don't delay. The future is now. Look for their butter and cheese at your favorite supermarket, specialty grocery store, or cheese shop. Visit KerrygoldUSA.com for recipes and product information. Now, let's check in with today's guest. Kate, yeah. I've been waiting for this for a long time.
Same.
I'm excited. I feel like we've been in this journey together, but I've also just admired you, both close as a friend and from afar, just seeing the impact that you've had in food. So let's get started. You're a Dallas girl, born and raised.
Yes, ma'am.
You talk a lot about how your Southern hospitality influences the work that you do. Can you tell us a little bit of what life was like in the Pauley household?
Oh, yeah. The Pauley household was a good, loving space to grow up in. Both sides of my family, but I would say predominantly my mom's, I think of food always being present. My grandparents had a garden, and so in the summer they were in Oklahoma. It was like picking tomatoes and apples, and it was just everything right there in the backyard. We'd bring it in, we'd eat it. Sugar tooth, everyone is like a major sugar tooth in my family, and so I feel like any celebration, birthday, party, whatever it was, food was present, and it was what brought everybody together, and it was like such a critical part of my life.
Were you guys more on the homemade desserts train, or were there Dallas bakeries that every celebration you guys were regular customers for?
It's a good question. Sometimes it was homemade. There was definitely a lot of homemade stuff, like my mom's banana pudding, I think of specifically. She did a lot of that. And then it was just like nothing pretentious. The cosmic brownies were never not in my stocking for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
Or like a Little Debbie oatmeal pie. Nothing super highbrow. It was a mix, though. My dad, I will say, is a pie connoisseur. He has a blog that I don't think you can even find it Googling it. I've tried. But he has a pie blog called Life a Slice at a Time, and he tries pies everywhere he goes and then writes about them and documents them and is like legitimately obsessed. Like we gave him a 70th birthday pie themed party this year.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's
it was
so cute.
It was a hit.
Blogging runs in the family.
It does.
Yeah.
It is where it comes from.
Let's travel west. You ended up in California for college and you were there for a while. How did hospitality show up while you were at Pepperdine?
Ooh, it showed up a lot. I think in high school is really when I started getting a knack for it and like a desire to do it on my own. And the only barrier was that I didn't have a house. So it was like, hey, Mom and Dad, 10 people are coming over tonight that I invited over. We will be taking over the living room. And it would be things like that. In college, I feel like I got to spread my wings. I remember very specifically like the first gathering that I ever hosted freshman year of college. I was a nanny for a family, and they had another family that they were good friends with who was going out of town. They needed a house sitter. And I was like, of course I can house sit your Malibu home over on the cliff looking over the ocean. And so they knew that I was having friends come and stay. It was like Valentine's Day weekend, freshman year. And I invited probably 10 to 12 friends over and cooked this Italian feast. I'm sure it was just like basic pasta with sauce out of a can and a salad that we like threw together. But it filled me up on such a deep level where I was like, oh, this is what I want to be doing anytime I get the chance to do it. Yeah, that was like a pretty pivotal moment of like, let's gather the people. Yeah. Whatever the food is, let's bring them together and do this thing and plan a pretty over-the-top weekend, which is really all that Create Dinners is. It's just pick a theme, lean in hard.
We can call that Create Dinner 0 because then you had your first Create Dinner in 2016 in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And you dubbed it a passion project. Can you tell us a little bit about the first intentions you had for that first dinner?
Yeah. I had a bunch of creative friends who all did different things. One was a florist, one was a chef, one was a ceramicist, one was a stylist. I'm a photographer, and we all had our own lanes. I don't know how the idea came to my head. I was just like, we should have a creative dinner party where every person brings some physical offering or like talent, almost like a creative potluck. And together we can produce this beautiful evening, this beautiful tablescape. I'll bring my camera, I'll document it, and then we'll have these photos that we can all use on our own social media, websites, and help promote each other as these entrepreneurs, all female. And I think it just happened that we were all female. It wasn't set out ever to be like only women, but it just turned out that all my friends who were like really good at what they were doing and starting out, and we were all kind of in the same playing field and same level. We're all women and brought it together, and somehow everyone was available on the date and down to do it free of charge. It was just kind of like a creative barter.
Wow, that's beautiful. Did you come up with the name Create Dinners at that time, or did it come up after subsequent dinners with women?
It came up after the first one, before the second one, I believe. I was working in digital marketing and had a mentor in the company. His name was Rory, this British guy. He was really smart, and he was asking me about what my passion projects were outside of work and was like, this is a really good idea, mate. Like, you should do something with this, and saying, like, this is a business. And I was like, okay, that's, maybe. And so I think he actually might have been the one that said, what if it's Create Dinners? And his idea was, like, take the EAT, like the eat and create. And he was like, what if that's your logo? You like bold the eat and create. And I was like, it's a little far, Rory, but let's.
It's in there. You got to look for it.
Yes to the Create Dinners part, because we are like creating a dinner together. And I thought that was really cool. And also shocked that the domain had not already been reserved. So
sometimes it's the most simple one.
Seriously. Yeah. So I snatched that up and got all the handles and the domain, and then we just built the thing.
And that's on that. Let's talk a little bit more about your digital marketing career. Mm-hmm. So you were working in digital marketing and production for almost a decade.
Long time.
What was that life like?
It was great. It taught me so much. I was number 5 at a startup and started interning for them my senior year of college. Knew the co-founders, these very wise forever mentors named Alec and Alan, and they started the company. And there were only 2 other guys working at the company with them. And I was like, would you guys ever hire a woman to be on your team? And you're like, bro club? And they were like, yeah, I think so. And so they started interviewing for them. And at the time, they were doing all the marketing for like 20th Century Fox's theatrical campaigns.
Huge.
We started with them, and I worked on more theatrical campaigns than I could possibly count. And then as we grew, I mean, the company grew very quickly that first year. We went from 5 to like 25 in year 1. By the time that we ended, it was like we had clients in every single category. We had been acquired by Warner Media and AT&T, and it had grown into this like massive corporate company. So really saw it from start to finish. And I think it taught me largely how to build a brand, how to build a business, how to scale some things. And Create Dinners is very small, but I'm so grateful to know inner workings of a really small team that does grow, learns to pivot and just say yes and figure out what works.
What were specific things that you worked on at your time there?
The one that I'd hold the nearest and dearest to my heart is Mary Kay Cosmetics. The team there was fantastic. I still have a good relationship with their team. They let us do a lot of fun stuff. I've styled more makeup than you can possibly imagine and like know so much about makeup and products and all that kind of stuff from that time. But they were super fun.
It transfers over into the tablescapes and the decor and the aesthetics.
1,000%.
Let's go back to Create Dinners. So to date, how many Create Dinners have you hosted?
So the women's dinner series, we have 20 under our belt. But we've done all sorts of different events at this point. I think we are right on the 70 mark for events that we've produced.
That's amazing. So almost a third of your events have been the women's series.
Yes.
And then can you tell us a little bit about the other events that you're working on?
Yes. So we do branded events where brands, companies, or even individuals who are just looking for a more catered, intentional experience will hire us to produce their events. So we'll put on either dinner parties or we'll go into a company and do like a women's event where the women in the company come together and have open conversation and talk about what it's like to be a woman in the C-suite or to try and build their teams together and things like that. And then we will also do workshops. So we'll do creative workshops, either partnering with a florist or a mixologist or some kind of creator to let people come in and have a more hands-on experience. And obviously food and good drinks are always present at those events, but sometimes they are like backing the creative thing that we're doing.
That's amazing. You can't be creative without good fuel, I think.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit more about the dinner series. Why did you think that the dinner table and food needed to be the focal point for gathering people intentionally?
I think because food has played such a key role in my life, I knew the power of it. I grew up in a Christian household, and food was such a huge part of that. If somebody was like grieving something or celebrating something, someone was just on your doorstep with a casserole, or every Sunday or whatever night of the week, it was just like you found yourself around the dinner table. And my life looks so different from growing up in Texas, but that has remained the same for sure, where I feel most comfortable. The walls come down. It's nourishing. It is this thing that puts everyone on the same playing field, allows for an openness and an honesty.
For our audience, can you tell us a little bit about what a Create Dinner looks like from start to finish?
Ooh, yes. So for the women's dinner series, they're all a little different because they all have a theme. You usually show up, you walk in, someone, most likely myself, is there to greet you. And I will say that's a key part because at those dinners, I'm usually the only one who's talked to every person. Lots of them, I'm like meeting them for the first time, but we will have been like emailing for the last few weeks. So they come in, I know who they are because I've stalked them pretty thoroughly on whatever platforms that I can. Say hello, hand them a drink, or give them the direction of where to go. Usually we have a 30 to 45-minute mingle. Everybody get to know each other as they come in. And then there's usually some kind of a creative activity, like similar to our workshops. And so it could be we're all going to make a candle together, or there's going to be a natural dye class happening. There's some kind of creative thing. Then we all progress into dinner and we share a meal together. The chef is always working tirelessly, but everyone helps out and has a hand in keeping the night running. It just works out really beautifully in that way, where everyone is just like jumping in. And then there's usually some kind of ending activity or entertainment. Sometimes that is someone who's written a poem and performs spoken word. Sometimes it is live music. Sometimes it's a meditation or like a post-dinner yoga that's really easy and winds the night down. And then there's always a swag bag where people get a little goodie bag to take out. Looks different from event to event just based on, if we have somebody who is like a ceramicist who makes something, they may have made a small little thing for everyone to take home. Or like a tea maker, maybe they send them home with some tea. But then everyone goes on their way. We keep in touch over email, and that's the idea. And like the most successful outcome of an event is like seeing the connection extend beyond the event, where they work together down the line and really, keep it going.
That's awesome. How do you normally decide on the theme? What places do you like to draw inspiration from for those?
I get theme ideas from all over. Often it is walking around and just observing. It can be going to a more obvious place, like an art museum or a park. But I'm like, even as we're sitting here looking at this striped copper and dark red wall, I'm like, could you be dinner number 22? I don't know, maybe, possibly.
I think you could do it, like a Georgia O'Keeffe motif.
Exactly.
Yeah, Southwestern vibes.
Honestly.
Yeah.
But it is usually like I'll see something or I'll have a conversation, and that is the beginning of the snowball. I go on Pinterest and I see a few images and I'm like, that's it. That's the color palette. We're done.
That's awesome. Can you tell us one or two themes that you were so proud of coming up with?
Ooh, we've had some really fun themes. I did one, this was dinner number 19. We did a dinner in Vermont. And that was like such a big endeavor because I don't know anyone. I don't know who I think I am being like, apply to dinner number 19 in Vermont.
You are someone.
We had an incredible group of 10 gather, so it was like a smaller dinner. But our theme was Luna Moth, which I did not know what a Luna Moth was prior to moving to the East Coast. My husband, Brian, is from Vermont, and the first summer that I was like visiting Vermont, we were with his family, there was a Luna Moth on the door outside, and they only come out at certain times of the year, like for just a few weeks, only certain parts of the day. But I was like, what is that? Like, that is the craziest, most beautiful thing I've ever seen. They're like lime green. The center of them is like a yellowish, turns pink. They look crazy in a good way. I always knew I would have a Luna Moth theme, but I also love, on top of how it presents itself visually, that it's this creature that flies and is free and only comes out at certain times and is just like mysterious. And I was like, this is going to be a cool theme. Yeah. So that was our theme for the Vermont dinner, which felt very appropriate in the summer. And we like carried a table out to the middle of a field. We were surrounded by green. It was a friend's property that hosted it.
That's beautiful.
It was really lovely. Dinner number 14 was the first dinner in New York after I moved from California, and we'd been on a 1.5-year hiatus because of COVID, and we couldn't gather. We had dinner 14, which was themed stories. Everyone really focused on sharing their story about what the last 1.5 years had been like for them, where they came from. And the theme was very old Italian grandma's backyard kind of vibe. We had really good wine and made pizzas, and it was just very late summer garden. It was a really special one and felt like the right theme to kick off the New York chapter.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
That's amazing. You have so many different people coming in with different creative mindsets at different stages of their creative journeys. You've got professionals, you've got freelancers, you've got enthusiasts. How do you set expectations for how guests can contribute and show up to these dinners?
I prepare a deck that I send out before every event that has like the timeline, the mood board, logistical next steps for everybody. So time, address, things like that. Everyone who's attending, there's a guest list. And so those things go out to everyone to just formalize it, let everyone know exactly what to expect. In terms of choosing people, I get people who ask me, and I don't even think this was your question, but I feel like it's important to say. A lot of times people will ask, do you have to be a creative? Does this have to be my full-time job to come? And the answer is no. I think anyone can tap into their creativity and contribute something. And so I like to look at somebody when they're applying to come as a whole picture of who is this person? Like, what can they offer? What are they going to get from this? Are they the right type of person who's going to come in with nothing but kindness and support and want to encourage the other women in the room? Because so much of it is about that over, am I going to be a successful whatever offering you bring? And it's more about getting the right women in the room with each other to create a connection that's going to last long beyond whatever happens at the dinner.
I've been to a create dinner, I've seen so many create dinners, and they look so incredible, but I have to ask, have there been times when things haven't worked out?
Oh, yeah. The story that always comes to my mind was the first dinner we ever did in New York. And it was dinner 7. This is when I still lived on the West Coast. My good friend Elise and I flew out. I was just like, I'm going to do one in New York. And so we
Love the ambition.
Yeah. Decided to do it. The woman who was hosting was going to be sourcing all the plates. And we had mapped out this like stunning tablescape. The event, I believe, was supposed to start at 5:30. And she was like, the delivery is coming at 3:30, so we'll be able to set the table then. And I was like, great. And we get to 4 o'clock. They're not here yet. Then we get to 5 o'clock, not here yet. 5:15, I was like, people are showing up in 15 minutes. We have to get something on this table. It turned into us just pulling every single plate. Somehow they had 16 plates, thank goodness.
Magical.
Yeah. Pulled every single plate, just put it on the table. I think half the candles were not lit. Like, it is by a landslide the ugliest tablescape we've ever had. And apologies to anyone who was at dinner 7 who doesn't know this story. I look back at the photos and honestly, you A, cannot really tell, and B, the event was so happy and wonderful, and the people who were there were just fantastic humans that it didn't matter. And I think that was like such a big learning for me is like the tablescape is just a detail. That is not what it's about. It does not matter if it's an immaculate tablescape. Someone's always going to have a more beautiful tablescape. Someone's always going to whatever. What matters is like the people connected. We had an event that like meant something to people. So it was successful in that sense. But yeah, things go wrong all the time. It is usually a logistical thing like that where you're like, we need to pivot real fast.
I guess that's a good segue into my next question of, I feel like we are entering our events era. Dinner parties are back. Everyone's outside. Everyone's doing things. And more people are actually choosing to host at home, even though we spent the last 2.5 years cooped up indoors, I guess almost 3 now. What advice would you have for our audience on the show on how they want to elevate gatherings or add more intentionality to them? Also, not just in tablescapes, but in other elements as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's all in the details for elevating. Like, I think it's communicating with your guests ahead of time to figure out, like, does anyone have a dietary restriction? Is it anyone's birthday or anniversary? What little things can I do to elevate these people as humans and make them feel like I saw them and I cared for them before they arrive? I think that's a big part of it. And then I would say on the tablescape, there's so many things you can do. I think one of the very simplest ways that I'd like to elevate a tablescape is like light some candles. I think that instantly can change the vibe of a room. It's like turn the lights down a little bit and light some candles. Flowers or greenery is always a nice touch. And then I think it's in the planning and like the flow of the event where it's like you need enough structure where people don't feel like they're just walking around aimlessly. You want to give people structure where it's like, we start out for the first half hour doing this, give people time to arrive, and then have a very clear cheers, welcome. We're going to transition into this and make you feel comfortable. For the food, there's so many things you can do to elevate food. You could get takeout for the entire meal, but I think having one homemade thing that you do or one special item can really elevate and make people feel like, oh, this is cool and was delicious or thoughtful or whatever takeaway you want them to have.
Yeah, that's so important. That's awesome. So Create Dinners is now your full-time gig.
Yeah.
And you made that transition right as the pandemic was starting.
I did. That company that I was at for almost a decade, we had a mass layoff like November of 2020, I believe. So it was like 7-8 months into the pandemic. I feel very grateful that I was pretty burnt out and ready to leave by that time and had just been there. Like, it was safe. We were like, what's happening in our country? And it was a safe thing, but had wanted to do something different for a long time. And I didn't know exactly what that was. I knew I wanted to potentially do something on my own, but it was scary. And so then when I was forced to have to make that decision, it felt a lot more clear. I took a couple months to like really think it through and map out what Create Dinners could be in a pandemic world when we weren't gathering. We relaunched. We did a rebrand, actually. I hired my friend Kristen, who's a really talented graphic designer, to create us a new logo. I redid the whole website and got it ready to go. And then I relaunched with a virtual series called The Lunchbox.
I love that.
We would mail boxes to anyone who would buy a ticket to our event. We would have this group unboxing, and inside there would be various goods made by female businesses. So the first one was a Valentine's Day event. We did a chocolate tasting with Crew Chocolate, which is delicious if you've never had it.
Yeah.
But their founder, Carla, walked us through the product. We had a tasting, and it was really, really cool. And then at all Create Dinners events, there's a time for conversation questions, usually while we eat. We had questions, and so everyone on the Zoom went around and answered a question, and it oddly felt like a Create Dinners event. I was like, this gives me hope that we can do this until we're allowed to gather again. And so we did a bunch of virtual series. That's kind of how we launched it into the full-time thing.
As we both know from experience, events businesses are tough. They're incredibly expensive. They're fun and everything, but it also takes a lot of work and creativity and skill to not just prove yourself, but also bring these incredibly unique concepts to life. What made you decide on doubling down on events when you want to relaunch Create Dinners?
I think part of it was out of necessity, that I just needed to generate income to be able to live and do this full time. And the other part of it is that I really do love the logistics and the craziness of an event. Working at the agency that I was at for so long, I worked in production. And so I lived by timelines and all the internal docs and checklists and to-do master lists, making sure you had everything. So it was a really easy, natural transition into that where it's all production. It's all details and being organized. And then the creativity part is obviously the fun part.
How do you balance ensuring the logistics of the business side while still trying to enhance the creative side for your events?
It's a great question. It is a tough balance. I know I'm in the right profession because even if I'm losing money, I would still do this till I die.
That's a good sign.
I am constantly tweaking the business model and the type of events that we do to figure out where's the need, where can profit be made, what is actually sustainable. And I don't want to be putting on events that are not interesting to people. On the creativity side, it's a mix of trying to stay with what's trendy and also be timeless. I am not a 20-year-old on TikTok that is on the most up-and-up trends, but I like to stay educated on what's happening and have a pulse on things. But I do think part of Create Dinners is staying timeless to an extent so that we can be there for anybody of any age, any interests. We want to be able to appeal to all different types of people, ages, groups, demographics, all of that. Having events that are not so singular that it won't be interesting to at least some decent sized group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by having different walks of life walk in, you get more enriching conversations or enhancing conversations. I remember the dinner that I went to that you hosted with Chef Leigh Alston. It was so interesting. Just the person across from me, I think, worked in journalism. Another person worked in media. Another person was starting their own business. And it's like, you often don't get to interact with those types of people on the day-to-day. And it's nice to be able to do it in a place that's incredibly comforting. I want to talk to you specifically about partnerships because I've really admired the way that you've used partnerships to leverage your brand and also leverage the way that you produce events. And I feel like we're in this era where there's partnerships for everything. I feel like everyone's doing a collab, everyone's doing a pop-up. Can you walk us through the pitch process of how you get brands to align with Create Dinners?
Yeah. As you're saying that, I'm thinking, how did we even start doing partnerships? And I'm going to give a shout out because she's about to open up her first brick and mortar. Emily Schilt, who runs Pop-Up Grocer, they're about to open their first permanent location. I actually took over her apartment in Fort Greene. She was like a friend of a friend and met her in that way. And then I was like, wait, you do something super cool. She's awesome. And it's been so cool to watch her build her thing. But we went out, I think we were at Grimm in Williamsburg, and I was just picking her brain about things. And I think she was the one that planted that idea in my head. What, you should get sponsors. That is definitely something that brands would be willing to do and want to be a part of these things that you're creating. And that was the first time I really started thinking about it. Then it was a matter of curating brands and looking at brands who would be a good fit. Are they big enough to either be able to donate product or, better yet, back an event financially? And then ones who fit with us aesthetically, ones who shared a similar brand ethos, ones who had products that would just naturally tie into whatever event we were doing. And that's often a lot of companies in food and beverage. Sometimes it's companies who make things that go on the table, like plates or napkins. I think because of my background and building those decks, we'll bring it back to them, I really knew how to put together a pitch deck and did a lot of pitching to brands to talk about what the value is going to be for them, which in this case, I really believe it. I'm this is valuable. You're getting an introduction to a group of creative, influential women who are going to be way more invested in your brand than if you're spending a ton of money on a random advertisement that may not be seen by the right eyeballs. But pitching it as this unique experiential marketing opportunity, shockingly, at least to me at the time, now it's not as shocking because I'm yeah, it is good for you. It's good for all of us. A lot of brands are on board and see the value in it, and I'm very grateful for that because it's the only way that we've been able to stay sustainable this whole time.
I'm curious, are there 3 elements that you think go into a really awesome pitch deck?
Establishing who you are as a brand is critical, and giving the very top notes of whatever the event is that you want them to be a part of. I think visuals is really strong. Fortunately for me, I'm a photographer and I have documented every single one of our events, and I can work those photos into every deck that we have to make them visually really beautiful. And that's one of our selling points for partners is you're getting authentic content of your product in use with real humans. So I think showing them what the end result could look like for them at a very quick visual way is key. And then I think keeping it concise and clear about what is being given and what is being received, laying out, here's what the sponsors give, here's what they're receiving, and outlining that product package for them, what the partnership details are. Obviously, this comes after you've had a over-the-phone conversation or in person, even better. You never want to be trying to close something the second you meet someone. It's so important to connect with someone as a human, and then if it's a right fit, then you can try and sell that.
You've also done a good job of partnering with people, I should say. You've harnessed food and beverage companies and brands. I know you worked with Chef Leigh Alston, who's near and dear to the Cherry Bomb family. You're the Emily of Saluka Collections, and you've also worked with Boisson, the non-alcoholic spirits shop. How do you think about partnering with people behind businesses in the food world to get these events together?
Yeah. Similar to partnerships with product partnerships, it's, do we have the same goals? Do we have the same brand ethos and values? Chef Leigh is, her entire life's message is like gratitude, feed you soon. And I love that. I think you should approach every day with gratitude and like start from that place. And somebody who comes in with an ego, or it's probably not going to be the right fit for Create Dinners. It's like we started as a bunch of small brands, like female brands, as a barter almost. And so it was like nobody is doing it for a ton of money or a ton of attention. Like, it's people who are humble and smart and generous with their talents and their time. And then hopefully that all pays off for all of us.
Yeah, that's amazing. When you think of dream sponsors or dream collaborators, are there 3 that come to mind?
I definitely have some that come to mind. One who is just so cool in every single thing that she does is Layla Gohar World. I would just want to be a fly on the wall observing everything that she does. But she creates the most amazing tablescapes, and her brain and art direction just works in such a cool way that I would love to do something with her. I think that would be awesome. I would love to partner, and we've worked with them a bunch, but I would love to do a dinner. Let's just throw it out there that we would do it somewhere in Greece or the Mediterranean. Gia. I love that Melanie built this thing. She's a smart woman. From everything that I've observed, I've only talked to her over email a handful of times, but she's lovely, she's smart, she's personable, and has created a product that is delicious. It's so great as an alcoholic alternative. It's really lovely, and I think doing an event with them, they're honestly kind of similar in aesthetic to that like Gohar World. Just very cool. Everything they put out is lovely and inspirational. I'm like, I save many Instagram posts from them. I have my last one.
Okay.
Dream location to do an event would be the Noguchi Museum.
Wow.
That is a high ask.
It can happen.
I mean, maybe one day.
Yeah.
I know they do events there. They definitely do events there. But that one, I've never not just been so inspired walking through that space. And you could do such an amazing minimal tablescape with like sushi. We've never done a sushi dinner. That's
an omakase dinner.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. Would love to make that happen.
I hope I get one of the tickets if it happens. Because it will happen.
Yeah. You can come. You'll be there.
Can't wait. I want to talk more specifically about your creative energy. I feel like you just exude creativity so well. When it comes to aesthetic, specifically for dining and food, are there elements of style that you live by in order to bring things to life?
Ooh. I think anything can be beautiful. It is so contextual to where you are, and I think of it as like a full package. I went to this place in Mexico City that maybe you told me about as we're talking about it. Expendio de Maíz.
Yes. Love that place.
Oh, it's so good, but it is the most unexpected meal based on how it presents visually. But I think that's a perfect example of the most basic, unassuming place from the outside where you're just like duck in and it's there and it's like, wow, that was one of the best meals I've ever had. And then you can go to these places in New York that are just like so lush and lavish and beautiful and also are the best experience you've ever had. So I wouldn't say it's a specific detail. I could tell you what I'm like drawn to personally, which is like a very clean, minimalistic. I love a lot of wood. I love sushi. I mean, we just talked about Noguchi, but I love a lot of plywood. I love a pop of a rich color and like velvet, really good light fixtures. Things like that are my personal favorite things to be surrounded by while dining. But then again, it's like, it's all context. Like being on the beach somewhere or in just like a divey spot where there's like hardly any decoration and it pairs beautifully with the food and the energy of the space and the people working it. It's really about the full package and if it works together.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I'm curious though, as you think about Create Dinners as it stands in the grand scheme of event planning and dinner parties, how are you hoping to add influence into this industry?
I hope to add influence by connecting people. It's much less about what it looks like or tastes like. It's about what it feels like. It's about bringing strangers together and having them walk away feeling like they maybe just had a connection with someone, or about people who already knew each other coming into a space and leaving knowing more about each other. As I said earlier, bringing people to the same playing field where they're like, okay, we're looking at each other on a human level and we are using food, and this space is the means of doing that. So I hope to bring it back to what food was intended to do, nourish us, and be this thing that brings everyone together. I hope to shake it up. Or not even shake it up, just do more of that.
Yeah, add more color, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you hope people are inspired by Create Dinners to start their own small businesses and their small event companies?
I hope that they can look at me and realize she's not a chef. She is not a full-time stylist. I did a lot of styling in my days, but that wasn't my full-time job. But people who are kind of Jane of all trades or interested in something, I hope they can look at me and feel empowered to know, you can do it. She did it. You can do it. You don't have to be perfect at it. As easy as just sending out an email or a text to a group of people, giving them a time and a place, and being the one to just start the thing.
Just do the thing.
Just start the thing. Do the thing.
In our many conversations, we've talked about Create Dinners, dreams and aspirations, but if we were to do this podcast again in 2030, where do you hope to see Create Dinners?
Ooh, I hope that we have done some things internationally. I hope we're all over. I would love for events to be happening multiple times a week all over, and that we can just be sharing the beautiful photos and the stories of the people who are in attendance on our website. It would be awesome to have a retail space or a just physical event space, some combo of that. That's my biggest goal right now is how do we get the space so that we can host more regularly? I have dreams of a coffee table book. I would love for there to be a nice
amazing
coffee table book by 2030, telling the stories of the people who have come, the meals we ate, the behind-the-scenes craziness that happened, things like that would be awesome.
Kate, before we wrap this up, I always like to have our guests do something called the Future Flash 5. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. The future of dinner parties.
Overwhelming and happening everywhere. I would love that.
The future of tablescapes.
Maximalist.
The future of small food businesses.
I hope they're very prevalent. I hope that they are the majority. I hope that we all start supporting the small guys and that they run the world.
The future of flowers.
Ooh, funky. I hope they're funky.
And the future of brand partnerships.
Authentic and real and actually meaningful.
Amazing. Well, Kate, I'm so excited to continue following your journey. But if we want to keep supporting you, where are the best places to find you?
You can find us on Instagram at Create Dinners, on our website, createdinners.com, in real life, bopping around New York City.
Yeah. And you have an event coming up in March. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. This is our first all-day event. It is called Expand, and it's going to be a day celebrating Women's History Month, focused on wellness, creativity. I think it'll feel like a healthy mix of therapy and support and joy and building each other up. It's going to be a really special day.
That sounds exciting. Kate, thanks again.
Thank you.
Before we go, our guest is going to leave a voicemail at the Future of Food mailbox, just talking to themselves 10 years from now. You have reached the Future of Food is You mailbox. Please leave your message after the beep.
Hi, Future Kate. Based on the last 10 years, there is a lot that has happened that you could have never predicted. I hope that you can give yourself grace for the things that you would have done differently, and that you feel gratitude for all of the incredible things that have happened along the way. Let's chat quickly about work because it seems to be the thing that worries and occupies your mind the most these days. I don't know what has happened over the past decade, but I want to give you these words of reassurance. The only way you could have failed your younger self is if you have stopped creating and practicing creativity or stopped gathering others around the table. Life should never be too busy to create or host. There are a lot of different ways you can measure your success, but I hope your top indicator remains love. If you're loving and being loved by your family and friends and community and remained kind and generous, you're doing just fine. Love, Kate from 2023.
That's it for today's show. Do you know someone who you think is the future of food? Tell us about them. Nominate them at the link in our show notes or leave us a rating and a review and tell me about them in the review. I can't wait to read more about them. Thanks to Kerry Gold for sponsoring the show. Visit kerrygoldusa.com for more. The Future of Food is You is a production of the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. Thanks to the team at CityVox Studios, executive producers Carrie Diamond and Catherine Baker, and associate producer Jenna Sadhu. Catch you on the Future Flip!